breaking news.
We continue to follow the breaking news that we first brought you at noon. The hunt for the man accused of gunning down the CEO of UnitedHealthcare in New York City comes to Blair County. You're looking at the video of New York police cruisers as they raced to Altoona a few hours ago after investigators say the suspect was spotted and taken into custody at a local McDonald's. It's a story that has shocked the country. Law enforcement says this is the man they want to talk to. They identify him as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. They say he's the main person of interest in the shooting death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson a week ago today. He's been in custody here at the Altoona Police Department for several hours alongside the NYPD, FBI, and local police. Officials with the NYPD say Mangione was arrested on weapons charges this morning after being found with a gun similar to the one used in last week's shooting. Authorities say they found clothing matching what was worn by the suspect during the shooting and a fake ID, the same one that was used to check into a New York hostel before the incident. Officers also say that they've recovered a 3-page handwritten note that Mangione was carrying, which expressed his distaste for corporate America. They're also saying the recovered gun appears to be a ghost gun, having possibly been made with a 3D printer. Altoona police haven't said much today, but this morning confirmed that they took a man into custody.
Today at 9:14 a.m., Altoona police officers were dispatched to a McDonald's restaurant for reports of a male matching the description of the UnitedHealthcare CEO murder suspect. Officers made contact with the male, who was subsequently arrested on unrelated charges. At this time, the Altoona Police Department is cooperating with local, state, and federal agencies. More information will be released later this evening.
They also tell us that more information will be revealed this evening. As he said, this was the scene in New York City's Central Park early this morning as police drivers search a lake for the gun in the shooting. This before getting word that the possible suspect was spotted in a McDonald's in Altoona. Now let's go over to Brock Owens, who's outside that McDonald's where police say Mangione was taken into custody. Hey, Brock.
Hey Valerie, officials say just after 9 this morning, someone here at this McDonald's along Plank Road in Altoona noticed that a man matched the description of the alleged shooter before Altoona police showed up taking him into custody. As we already mentioned, it is 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was traveling through Altoona on a Greyhound bus that stopped at the McDonald's this morning. I spoke with the owner of this location who would not answer many of the questions I asked, including who reported Mangione, how many witnesses were there, and how the process unfolded. But he did say he believes surveillance video will be available at some point as long as police agree to release it, but that isn't available right now. I also saw an Altoona police officer at the store this afternoon interviewing customers. We spoke with multiple people in the area, some saying it's crazy Mangione was here in Altoona, knowing they could have been here when everything happened. Others having questions about if the whole situation will change the healthcare industry. And I also spoke with a man that says he lives close to this McDonald's, says he walks past it every day, and I talked to him about his reaction.
It was a surprise. I wondered right away where he's been spending the last 5 days. I'm sure the police are going to look at that, and does he know people here? Or is this Greyhound bus just going through to somewhere else? And who does he know? Who's been helping him, if this was the guy? And so this story is far from over.
And once again, as we already said, we know that they took Mangione from this McDonald's to the Altoona Police Department where they began questioning him about the shooting, and they're holding him in an undisclosed location while the investigation is continuing. Live in Altoona, Brock Owens, 6 News.
Thanks so much, Brock. Police say Mangione had a self-assembled type of gun that may have been 3D printed. Ghost guns are homemade firearms put together from parts either bought as a kit or as separate pieces, which don't require a background check to purchase. They're untraceable because they don't have serial numbers. 15 states have some sort of regulations on them.
He was in possession of a ghost gun that had the capability of firing a 9mm round and a suppressor.
President Biden proposed a law requiring the parts kits of parts themselves to be subject to the same regulations as traditional firearms, meaning that manufacturers and sellers need to obtain licenses, mark them with serial numbers, conduct background checks, and keep transfer records. Mangione is a UPenn graduate and was his high school valedictorian. He's a strong person of interest. CBS 21's Sarah Birds continues our team coverage today. She sat down with a former classmate to find out more about who Luigi Mangione is.
Popular, kind, and highly intelligent. A former classmate of Mangione's who chose to remain anonymous said this is something they would have never seen coming.
He was so sweet and so smart. He was literally valedictorian, and I was in a similar social circle to him, but he was just like a wholesome guy.
Mangione graduated from the Gilman School for Boys in 2016. His classmates said because he was so intelligent, the intricacy in which he allegedly planned out the shooting is not surprising. They told us it, quote, made sense that he would have the capability to carry this out. Mangione was quiet, driven, played baseball, and a UPenn graduate with a computer science degree.
He was literally valedictorian, and I was in a similar social circle to him, in that we didn't really party that much. We were more academically motivated instead of sports motivated than most of the people that we went to school with, but he was just like a wholesome guy, very like well liked by his community, and in my mind I saw him fitting into a lot of different scenes.
Was his family, do you know anything about like what his family life was like? Any sort of, were they like out in the community doing volunteer work a lot?
I don't know much about his family, but with him being from the same town in Baltimore that I'm from, it's a town of many families that are more neighborhood oriented. The fact that he played in the same little league for the neighborhood makes me feel like it's okay to assume that they were just as sweet and average any other family living in that neighborhood.
I know that there were like some camera pictures, like a Crime Watch photo release before, he was even caught. Did you happen to see those at all before police had any indication of who this person might be, and like think like, does that look like, Luigi from school?
No, it's funny though, because I think he's definitely the type to have had like a post high school maturation / glow up. He was always like a handsome boy, so I totally see the similarities, but I didn't put anything together. I just seen the image of his mostly like hooded profile.
What was your initial reaction when you found out that he was a person of interest in this?
I was totally shocked. I haven't really kept up with what he's doing because we weren't close. And it's shocking to think of someone who grew up in the same community as I did, was a part of the same environments that I was, and had these titles given to him as valedictorian, as a University of Pennsylvania Ivy League student, going on to do this.
And how long did you know him for? Like, was it from elementary all the way through?
No, just the 4 years of high school, and maybe some of middle school, now that I'm thinking about my brother's baseball timeline. But like 4 clear years of high school. Okay, perfect.
Have you spoken with any of your friends that did know him in high school, since this has come out? Have they said anything?
Yeah, I mean, I texted I texted my friend group that was close-ish with him, and we were all freaking out. My friend sent me a photo of one of our groups of friends hanging out at her house from our sophomore year. And I mean, some of us are still like, is it confirmed? Is that definitely him? It's 100% him. Just speculating and processing the shock.
Could you the way that the terms that he had written on the bullets were typically that of like legal terms that they use in medical law.
Yeah.
Do you know if there was like any indication or reason like why he might have done this if he ends up being the accused?
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely motivated by wanting to make a statement and wanting to fight against something that he doesn't believe in. And I mean, it was working. It's worked. Like, it's doing that. And I think it's funny when some of the people speculating are saying things like, it seems like he had anti-capitalist views, because that's, in my mind, what this was entirely about. So I think it was totally politically motivated.
As it's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Luigi Mangione traveled to the area on a Greyhound bus and walked into the Horseshoe Curve Lodge looking for a room, according to ABC News, who spoke with the desk clerk who greeted him. The clerk explained that the hotel did not have a clean room at that hour, and Mangione left.
He basically just walked in kind of cagey, just looking around, making sure he wasn't being watched, asked if he could get a room here.
At around 9:15 that morning, Mangione was then spotted at the McDonald's, where an employee called the Altoona police after a customer recognized Mangione from crime scene images.
Came back later when I heard, I thought, oh my God. And I said to the worker, was I here? She said, yeah, you guys were actually almost making a joke of it whenever he was in the McDonald's.
Investigators say after providing 2 officers, including rookie cop Tyler Fry, with a fake ID, Mangione was arrested on forgery charges. From there, Mangione was transported to the Altoona Police Department. New York Police Department and FBI officials soon traveled to the area as well.
Some of these detectives that are standing behind me haven't been home since Tuesday when this incident happened. They've been working this case tirelessly around the clock. And when they got that phone call, immediately they jumped in their car and raced down here to go see if this was the individual that we were looking for.
Aside from the fake ID, a 3D printed ghost gun and silencer were also found on Mangione's person. He was then charged with 2 felonies and 3 misdemeanors in Pennsylvania. He attended a preliminary arraignment hearing for those charges Monday night, where his bail was denied. He was then taken to SCI Huntington. Later that night, the city of New York filed second-degree murder charges against Mangione. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro also visited Altoona on Monday and spoke alongside NYPD and Altoona officers.
I have no tolerance, nor should anyone, for one man using an illegal ghost gun to murder someone because he thinks his opinion matters most.
By Tuesday afternoon, it was revealed that Altoona attorney Thomas Dickey would be representing Mangione in court. Mangione was seen screaming at the media on his way into the Blair County Courthouse for his extradition hearing that day. Dickey represented Mangione at that hearing, where Mangione's transfer to New York was contested and his bail was denied.
Contesting it, just provides more hoops for law enforcement and prosecutors to jump through, but we're happy to do that.
At a press conference that evening, Dickey explained that he was hired, not appointed, but would not say who hired him. Dickey also revealed that Mangione had pled not guilty to the charges out of Pennsylvania. Dickey also said Tuesday night that he expects Mangione to plead not guilty to murder charges out of New York, citing a lack of evidence pointing him toward the crime.
Fundamental concept of American justice is the presumption of innocence, and until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I've seen 0 evidence at this point.
As investigators look to build a case against Mangione and bring him back to New York to prosecute him for his alleged involvement in that killing. According to New York Police Department Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, the shell casings found at the scene in Manhattan match the gun found with Mangione at the Altoona McDonald's. Tisch also says the fingerprints taken from a water bottle and a snack bar wrapper found on scene are consistent with Mangione's fingerprints that were taken after his arrest on Monday. I've reached out several times throughout the day to the Altoona Police Department and Blair County District Attorney Pete Weeks looking to find out more about the new evidence. I also wanted to find out if they think the evidence they have so far is enough to show Mangione is the shooter like they allege. Mangione's defense attorney Thomas Dickey says he's not seen any evidence that would incriminate his client, who is pleading not guilty to the Blair County charges that include illegal possession of a weapon and forgery. Dickey says he also anticipates Mangione to plead not guilty to any charges in New York, which currently include second-degree murder. I did briefly speak with Dickey today, who tells me he has not spoken to Mangione today but does plan to soon, and he will need to review the newest reported evidence himself. But this is what New York City Police say today about the case.
So just a very brief update on the investigation. First, we got the gun in question back from Pennsylvania. It's now at the NYPD crime lab. We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide. We were also able at our crime lab to match the person of interest's fingerprints with fingerprints that we found on both the water bottle and the Kind bar near the scene of the homicide in Midtown.
And a timeline of when Mangione could be prosecuted with those charges in New York remains uncertain right now as he looks to challenge his extradition back to New York City. Live in Blair County, Brock Owens, 6 News.
Thanks, Brock. People want to help Luigi Mangione pay his legal bills. A fundraiser on Give, Send, Go claims to have raised more than $30,000 for the suspect in the fatal shooting of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan last week. The organizers say they're, quote, not here to celebrate violence, but believe in the constitutional right of fair legal representation. Mangione's defense attorney, Thomas Dickey, says people are offering to pay his staff, but adds that no one will likely accept.
Obviously, my client appreciates the support that he has, but I don't know. I'd have to look in, but it just doesn't sit right with me. The Supreme Court says, you know, all these rich billionaires can give all kind of money to candidates, and that's free speech. So maybe these people are exercising their right to free speech and saying that's the way they're supporting my client.
And Dickey may continue to represent Mangione if his case is brought to New York. At a news conference last night, Attorney Dickey said that he would continue fighting for Mangione for as long as it takes to represent him confidently and effectively. He then went on to say that while he has not taken the bar exam for New York, which would allow him to practice there without issue, there is still a way for him to represent Mangione if he is tried in that state.
You can get admitted, because I've been doing this for 41 years, you can get admitted there. So, but like I said, I don't want to speculate about anything. If something that opportunity would present itself and that would come out, I certainly would consider it.
After advising Mangione to contest his extradition to New York yesterday, Dickey says his only upcoming hearing as of right now will be in Blair County. As we mentioned, fingerprints found at the murder scene of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson reportedly matched those taken during the arrest of Luigi Mangione. That's according to CNN, citing law enforcement sources. It's the first direct link tying the 26-year-old to the crime scene in Manhattan where Thompson was gunned down last week, in addition to the now shell casings that NYPD say they are confirming match the gun. Meanwhile, one of Mangione's former teachers is reacting to his arrest by saying shock does not describe how she felt to learn about what happened. Liz Sessler-Beckman taught Mangione for 2 years in middle school at the Gilman School in Baltimore. Sessler-Beckman says she could not believe a former student with such promise could be accused of shooting Thompson in cold blood.
Like a cognitive dissonance between the person that we all knew and the person who would commit such a heinous crime. It just doesn't make any sense, and it certainly goes against the values of the school that we all were part of the community.
She also says Mangione was a diligent, well-liked student.
This killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero.
Mangione's defense attorney Thomas Dickey filed what's called a writ of habeas corpus In this case, that's the documentation that needs to be filed by the defense to challenge Mangione's extradition back to New York, which Dickey announced he was planning on doing during an extradition hearing earlier this week. And I just learned minutes ago another hearing is scheduled for December 30th at 1 p.m. at the Blair County Courthouse, and that's to question his bond being denied. A preliminary hearing for Mangione's charges in Blair County, including 2 felonies, forgery, and firearms not to be carried without a license, is currently still scheduled for December 23rd. Officials with the New York Police Department say today Mangione's family filed a missing persons report in California prior to his arrest in Altoona Monday. They say Mangione got off a bus that originated in Atlanta, Georgia, and they're still going through the video from every stop the bus made along the way, but says that bus got to New York City November 24th. Investigators say it's still not known how Mangione got the ghost gun that he had, but today we're learning that to make a connection between Mangione and the scene, the New York Police Department did obtain the test fire the gun found with Mangione when he was arrested, and the ejection marks match the shell casings on scene. As for a motive for the alleged killing, New York police say that there is no indication that UnitedHealthcare was ever the insurance company that Mangione had, but adds that it is the largest healthcare organization in the country, and that may be a reason for Mangione's alleged involvement in the attack. Live in Altoona, Brock Owens, 6 News.
Thanks, Brock. In the meantime, Mangione remains held here at SCI Huntington. Officials say he's currently being held in an isolation cell similar to the one you see pictured here. This picture, shared by the Department of Corrections, is an empty 15 by 6 foot cell that shares a wall with Mangione's cell. Investigators say they found a notebook connected to Mangione that may have some clues about Thompson's killing. Authorities have said that it contains to-do lists that coincide with details of the attack. There was also a 3-page handwritten letter that talked about corporate greed and what Mangione called parasitic health insurance companies. He allegedly wrote that corporate profits keep going up while life expectancy does not, and that the U.S. has the most expensive healthcare system in the world. Mangione's defense attorney, Thomas Dickey, is promising to challenge the evidence that police say ties him to the scene of the crime in New York.
And I still haven't seen that evidence. Lawyers need to see evidence. Those saying you have something and getting that admitted into court are 2 different things.
The suspected UnitedHealthcare CEO killer, Luigi Mangione, is cemented firmly in public conversation.
I don't have real condolences for, the healthcare CEO. I mean, this is a real person, But you also got to go, sometimes drug dealers get shot.
Mangione has emerged in some circles as a sympathetic figure fighting the system. A legal defense fund set up on the platform Give, Send, Go has raised more than $128,000 as of Monday, with messages of support from anonymous donors.
Just a cold-blooded, horrible killing, and how people can like this guy is, that's a sickness, actually.
Wanted posters for other CEOs popped up in New York City. Self-described socialist clothing company Comrade Workwear says they're going to make playing cards of other most wanted CEOs. Some Democrats see it as a moment that can't be ignored for healthcare reform.
What you have seen rising up is people's anger at a health insurance industry which denies people the health care that they desperately need.
Murder is never justified. It isn't. But if this country's leaders don't pay attention to the conversation that's happening right now this weekend, that is a mistake.
Progressive Democratic Senator and healthcare industry critic Elizabeth Warren had to walk back comments she made to the Huffington Post last week. Warren told the outlet in part, violence is never the answer, but people can be pushed only so far. Before telling Politico, I should have been much clearer that there is never a justification for murder.
They are just very lost on this right now, Democrats, and they are just trying to shoehorn a policy argument into a cold-blooded murder.
The organizers of the online defense fund say they're reaching out to Mangione's new attorney to try and ask the suspect what he'd like the money to be spent on. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
This was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder.
that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. It occurred in one of the most bustling parts of our city, threatening the safety of local residents and tourists alike, commuters and business people just starting out on their day. Let me say a bit more about the charges. They include 1 count of murder in the first degree as a killing in furtherance of terrorism, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional. The maximum penalty possible for murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism is life without parole. The maximum penalty for murder in the second degree is 25 years to life. There are additional counts as well. A number of criminal possession of weapon charges, 2 counts in the second degree, 4 counts in the third degree, 1 count in the fourth degree, and a count of criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. Let me tell you a bit about the facts. On November 24th, we allege that the defendant arrived in New York City to murder Brian Thompson. After the defendant arrived in New York City on a bus at Port Authority, he checked into the hostel on the Upper West Side using the name Mark Rosario with a fake New Jersey ID. On the morning of December 4th, the defendant left the hostel, just after 5:30 a.m. and traveled to Midtown. For nearly an hour, we allege the defendant waited in the area near the Hilton Hotel, waiting for Mr. Thompson to appear. From 6:38 a.m. to 6:44 a.m., the defendant stood across from the entrance of the hotel on West 54th Street. When he saw Mr. Thompson, he crossed the street and approached him from behind. We allege he then took out a 9mm 3D printed ghost gun, equipped with a 3D printed suppressor, and shot him once in the back and once in the leg. The defendant then fled northeast on 54th Street and took an e-bike uptown before getting into a taxi that took him to West 178th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. On December 9th, the defendant was spotted at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The local police were notified, he was arrested, and he was found with a 9mm handgun, a suppressor, 2 ammunition magazines, and the same fake New Jersey ID he used at the hostel.
After being arrested at a McDonald's in Altoona last Monday, Mangione is facing felony forgery and weapons not to be carried without a license charges in Blair County. Mangione has been held at SCI Huntington, and his local attorney Thomas Dickey saying Mangione is pleading not guilty to all charges and is challenging being taken back to New York. But Mangione has since retained a high-profile attorney from New York, Karen Friedman Agnifilo. And since then, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg says there have been talks to get an extradition hearing this week. And signs point toward Mangione waiving his extradition. Pennsylvania courts announced Tuesday that the preliminary hearing for Mangione that was scheduled for December 23rd has been moved to Thursday, December 19th at 8:30 a.m. and an extradition hearing will directly follow. I've reached out to Blair County District Attorney Pete Weeks about the developments, but have not heard back. Cambria County District Attorney Greg Niebauer explains the process of an extradition hearing.
Be it waived or be extradition granted by the court, the jurisdiction that has the warrant and wants the individual has a period of time to come and get them. It's 30 days typically. A lot of times it happens much quicker than that. Happens within a few days, sometimes a couple of weeks. It's a right that they have to a hearing. Again, most instances it is waived because in most instances it would be granted.
We are concerned that Luigi's constitutional rights were violated in Pennsylvania, and there are serious search and seizure issues that will be litigated in that case in Pennsylvania and in this case here and in the federal case, because it is alleged that Luigi had a gun on him and had other property on him that they are going to use against him in all of the cases. And if there is a search and seizure issue, and again, we have to review all of the paperwork and camera footage when we receive it before we say definitively whether we think there is one. But so far what we are seeing is we think there is a serious search and seizure issue. And so we want the opportunity to litigate it.
The Attorney General announced weeks ago that she was directing the interim U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York to seek the death penalty. The filing claiming the crime was intentional and premeditated. Mangione was last week in federal court. That's where he was indicted, but he's not yet entered a plea. However, he did plead not guilty to state charges in New York. The last federal execution was back in January of 2021. Prior to that, it wasn't until prior to July of 2020, rather, it wasn't used at all for 17 years.
Authorities are stuck in what has so far been an endless loop that continues to delay the case from moving forward. A newly filed document in Blair County Court has given the defense hope it may move forward, but prosecutors say that still may not happen. It has been 275 days since Mangione was taken into custody in Altoona. Since being taken to New York, just a few days later, Mangione has been kept there while he faces his most serious charges. The most recent filing by a Blair County judge orders Mangione to be able to appear in person for a court date in November. The court date would be to discuss evidence the defense wants thrown out because they believed it was not properly collected, along with some charges they want dismissed in Blair County. But the Blair County judge also recognizes that federal officials have the right to not allow Mangione to be transported. Blair County District Attorney Peter Weeks tells me he spoke with U.S. Attorney's Office today, and he expects the judge's request to be denied like it has been several times already, but for Mangione to be made available to appear virtually. Weeks says federal officials won't transport Mangione because it poses a safety risk for both him and law enforcement because of strong opinions on both sides. Weeks says Mangione could appear virtually and believes federal officials are being more than fair. But Mangione and his Altoona-based defense attorney Thomas Dickey have been declining to appear over video to this point, which they have the right to do.
If the best interest of Mr. Mangione is to move forward with these hearings without having him here, then that's what we'll do. However, but yeah, we want him here because it is a constitutional right to be here, and we just don't give up constitutional rights, at a whim.